Aaron, just let me know when you all are good with the recording. Good, great. So just a couple items that may be of interest for our SWEP members here today and potential new members. We have a couple good events being planned, so please be sure to check out our events page. We have a lot of good things that are starting to be planned for 2022, including our diversity, equity, and inclusion event that you saw on the PowerPoint slide. So please register for that once that event's open. And then we have a couple book clubs scheduled and some other things that are in the works. So a lot of good things coming up for the remainder of this year and next year. Also, if anyone is interested, we have a few upcoming vacancies on both our executive committee, our board of directors, and committees. So if anyone is looking to get their name out there as a student and look for, your first job out of school, or whether you're just looking to get involved with some more community-based service and professional service, SWEP would be a great place to start with that. We would certainly welcome your time and everything if you were interested in volunteering for one of our board positions or one of our committee positions, or just helping to plan an event or something along those lines if you're not interested in a more committed position. So if you are interested, feel free to reach out to us and we'll certainly get you some information and coordinate with the right people to contact. So with that, we'll kick things off tonight. I have the pleasure of introducing Deirdre Smith. Deirdre is our one of our guest speakers and presenters for tonight. So thank you very much for that, Deirdre. She's the Chief Operating Officer at Duffield Associates. In 2021, Duffield merged with 4 other companies to create a national engineering and consulting platform. Deirdre is responsible for the operations and performance of Duffield's technical services divisions, including environmental, civil and site engineering, water resources, natural resources, and geotechnical engineering services. Deirdre also serves as project principal, working with her clients and team to deliver client-focused solutions on multiple disciplinary projects. And she earned her bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a Master of Science in geotechnical engineering from the University of Delaware. And she's also a licensed professional engineer and LEED certified professional. Deirdre serves on the board of the Water Resources Association of the Delaware River Basin as the 3rd vice president of the Committee of 100 in Delaware, where she chairs the Environmental and Energy Committee, as well on the board of the Family Promise of Northern Newcastle County, a nonprofit dedicated to preventing and ending homelessness for families in our community. So thank you for, again, speaking tonight, and I'll turn it over to Deirdre.
Thank you, Becky. I am very excited and honored to be here tonight to help us celebrate this year's Touchstone Award recipient. This year's recipient joins a group of very distinguished women who've obviously contributed to the environmental field of practice. They're distinguished by their professional commitment, their leadership and achievement, and have set a standard for quality and excellence in their profession. And this year's recipient, Jen Gresh, embodies all of these qualities. I've had the pleasure of working with Jen for almost 15 years. And so I've experienced firsthand what a dynamic and engaging force she is in the environmental profession. Hard work, commitment, and service to others have been a core value for Jen since she served our country as a young woman in the United States Air Force, after which she discovered her love of geology and environmental science. So it's not a surprise that as Jen evolved from this young, eager geologist to the seasoned environmental professional she is today, that she continued to serve others by sharing her passion, by her involvement in organizations that promote the professional development of young people, and especially young women in the environmental profession. When practicing in Delaware early in her career, Jen was an active member and a driving force in the Delaware Real Estate Women Organization. She's continued that engagement in the Philadelphia region through her active involvement in the Commercial Real Estate Women, the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, and of course, SWEP. Through her involvement in these organizations, she's developed longstanding relationships in the industry. and with clients who've learned to entrust her as they navigate the very complex world of environmental issues with a really strong sense of practicality, economic viability, and above all, technical excellence and professionalism. So as a senior project manager and a leader for our firm's environmental practice, Jen is known for setting the bar really high for her team. But she does it while providing the mentorship and the support and coaching that's needed so that they can become successful professionals themselves. She doesn't only lead by example, but she embraces her role as a mentor, not just in our firm, but in the profession and in the community. Jen has shared that passion and commitment to the advancement of women in her involvement in the Al to Al Mentor program at her alma mater, Temple University, where she serves on the alumni board for the College of Science and Technology. And the fact that Jen was selected to give the commencement speech to the college's 2019 graduating class, to me, is a reflection of an acknowledgement of her ability to connect and inspire young people with her passion and her vision. So I enjoy reading articles and books on leadership. And I was recently reading this book. I had heard about it, and it was called The 5 Lost Superpowers. And it's a really easy read, but the message really resonated with me. And it talks about 5 human qualities that are dampened and suppressed as we kind of find our way through life. But the people who are able to grab these qualities are able to really elevate their leadership and themselves as individuals. And these 5 qualities are curiosity, authenticity, compassion, resilience, and playfulness. So as I'm reading this book, I couldn't help but think, I know a leader who embraces all of these superpowers. Someone who uses them to bring out the best in others, not only her colleagues, but especially the young people that she mentors. And that leader, of course, is Jen. Jen embraces curiosity. She knows that growth comes from what you learn, not what you know. And you can see Jen get truly excited when she talks about geology and solving problems for her clients. And Jen embraces authenticity. She demonstrates trust in herself and who she is, and trust in the people around her. And Jen embraces compassion, listening, hearing, helping and supporting others, whatever their needs may be. And Jen is resilient. She demonstrates strength of spirit and models what it means to be human in the face of challenges. And Jen definitely embraces playfulness. Jen is fun, and she understands the value of creativity and that our careers and our lives are meant to be enjoyed. So Jen, to me, is a role model to women in the environmental professional and many other professions, for that matter, of all that you can achieve when you use your intelligence and your passion and those superpowers of curiosity, authenticity, compassion, resilience, and playfulness to lift up your colleagues, to lead, and to continue to strive for excellence. So please join me in congratulating the 2021 SWEP Touchstone Award recipient, someone I am really proud to call my colleague and friend, Jen Gresh.
Oh my gosh. Well, what more can I say? Like it's all right there. Holy cow, Deirdre. That was really kind. And gosh, I think I could probably say the same things about you. So thank you. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank SWEP, because SWEP is the very first networking organization I joined when I got into this profession. I was still in grad school when I joined, actually. And I always found its membership and the members to be kind and warm, the programming to be spot on for at least my needs, you know, as a burgeoning consultant. And, you know, man, I've been to many of the Touchstone event, and the women, the cadre and professionalism and intelligence of the women that have been selected as Touchstone Award winners, to be included among them, I'm just, whew, I'm honored. I am truly honored. Wow. I want to take a minute to thank the Touchstone Committee, Erin Rogers, Amy Martin, Kristen Weiler. They really coached us through this. And I absolutely want to thank the folks who nominated me for this great honor. So thanks to all of you. As you know, there's a panel discussion that's going to be later in the evening, and I'll be joined by two other very impressive women and moderated by an equally impressive woman. And we'll be talking about the profession, and I'll be opining about all my wonderful thoughts about the profession for a whole hour. And as much as I like to talk, I was thinking maybe I'd keep my remarks a little short because I've got all this talking to do. But I thought I would take this moment to talk a little bit about life. And the reason is, when I've talked as a mentor, and when I've talked to people about how to be successful, the keys to success, whatever that is, whatever you call it, I've always landed on mentorship. Find a mentor, be a mentor, lift people up, then you'll get lifted up, that kind of thinking. And I've also always talked about how important it was to follow your passion, because if you're passionate, do what you love what you do, you will be successful. And I believe both of those concepts. Absolutely, they're important. But, in the past year and a half, I've experienced some real life challenges, the kind that change your life forever. And not only my personal life, but some challenges in my professional life too. And challenges, think about challenges, not all challenges bad. Challenge can be good. It's just something you have to figure out, right? And honestly, I found myself in a position where I was rebuilding and recasting every aspect of my life all at the same time. And it was overwhelming. It was hard. And sometimes I found myself a bit stuck in the mud. I couldn't quite move forward. And when that happened, I had a discovery. I discovered I have a village. I don't just have a village. I have like a small island nation. I don't know what to call it, Greshville, something like that. My lifetime of focusing on building relationships through kindness and caring, being a good friend, daughter, sister, all those relationships, doing my very best to be kind and focusing outwardly instead of inwardly, set me up with a tremendous support system. And I am so thankful for that. So I found that my village lifted me up and got me moving, but movement without a direction, oh boy, that doesn't quite work. So that's where passion comes in. Passion tells you where to go, right? That gives you the direction. So today I would say mentorship is part of building strong quality relationships, and how important it is to nurture your village. Follow your passions because they give you the direction you need to know where to go. And that will push you into just such a successful position. And, today I'm thankful, I'm humbled. I'm in one of this is a very high moment for me right now. A Touchstone Award winning is pretty amazing. And I can't think of a better way to just put a little icing on the top of this really great moment. So thank you all. And wow, I thank you. So that's all I got. Stay tuned. I've got more opinions when we get to that panel. Yeah.
Erin, you're muted.
Thank you so much, Jen, for your remarks. Today, we also want to honor our scholarships and grant winners. That's another thing we typically do at our Touchstone Awards. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Laurel Klein to tell us a little bit about our scholarship winners.
Thanks so much, Erin. So as you are aware, my name is Laurel. I'm an environmental scientist with GZA and a future co-chair of the Scholarship and Grant Committee. As part of our committee this year, we reviewed applications from women enrolled in master's programs with a focus in environmental studies, as well as organizations dedicated to bettering the community and environment throughout the greater Philadelphia region. As such, we have awarded 2 scholarships and 3 grants for the 2021 season to exemplary applicants the committee has recognized. Jen and I will be introducing tonight's scholarship and grants winners, but I have the privilege of introducing Norhan Ibrahim and Ann Sharp. Norhan is a dual master's degree candidate in environmental studies and public health. Prior to attending the University of Pennsylvania, she received her bachelor's in ecology and evolutionary biology from Princeton. She interned and completed her senior thesis at the Mapala Research Center in Lacapia, teaching primary and secondary school students about conservation issues. Norhan served on the board of Princeton's Conservation Society and completed a research project exploring the effects of pesticide use on crop yields and agricultural workers. She is working on her capstone project that explores sustainable food production and responsible management of pesticides. Norhan hopes to pursue a career in environmental policy, where she will strive to mitigate impacts of environmental issues on community health. Ann Sharp is a master's degree candidate in environmental studies with a concentration in environmental sustainability at the University of Pennsylvania. Ann also received her bachelor's in biology with a concentration in ecology and evolutionary biology. In addition to taking graduate level classes, Ann works full-time as an administrative assistant at National Real Estate in Philadelphia. In her position, she works with the Sustainability Committee to monitor and promote construction-related ESG practices. She's pursuing certifications in GRI reporting, LEED, and WELL AP, and is the Climate Leader co-chair at Penn, where she oversees a board that connects climate-focused faculty, alumni, and students. Her goal is to broaden the sustainability efforts in her current position and create durable, joyful, living spaces which encourage people to live in urban centers, combat suburban sprawl, and allow our natural areas and arable land to remain undisturbed. Jen will be introducing our grant awardees. I just wanted to thank everybody for recognizing these amazing applicants, and take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Laurel. And again, congratulations to Ann and Norhan. We had an amazing pool of applicants to choose from this year, as we do pretty much every year. But you know, it was so difficult to make our decision. But you know, Ann and Norhan were amazing, and we wish them the best of luck. So congratulations. And now I will announce our 3 grant winners. The 3 winners this year were the Woodford Cedar Run Wildlife Refuge, Ursuline Academy, and Camden City Garden Club. And I'll tell you a little bit more about each one. So the Camden City Garden Club, they were awarded $500 in support of their community gardening program and their Youth Empowering Watershed Education and Action program, which is a part of their Youth Employment and Training program. This program services adult area residents and at-risk underserved youth. The fruits and vegetables grown at the garden benefit low-income individuals and families, and the Children's Garden provides activities and educational programs for children. Camden City Garden Club plans to use this grant for youth education by pairing urban agriculture and environmental science instruction, as well as nutrition education with hands-on job skills training, employment, and staff support. The skills and knowledge gained through this valuable program will facilitate graduation, post-secondary education, and the pursuit of employment and a practical route of autonomous adulthood. So congratulations, Camden City Garden Club. Our next winner is Ursuline Academy. They're located in Wilmington, Delaware, and they were awarded $1,000 to expand their laboratory resources for environmental academic programs. They're going to use the grant to purchase Finn Scientific Inquiry Lab kits for their AP Environmental Science class. The use of these lab kits complements Ursuline's participation in Delaware's Adopt a Wetland program. So Ursuline adopted Cool Spring Reservoir, which they not only help preserve, but they also use for educational purposes. So Ursuline's goals for the grant are to deliver an innovative and purposeful education within STEM fields and humanities. And last but not least, our grand winner of the grant is the Woodford Cedar Run Wildlife Refuge. They're based out of New Jersey, and they were awarded $3,000. So this organization is dedicated to the preservation of New Jersey's wildlife and habitats through education, conservation, and rehabilitation. They educate 30,000 school children each year through field trips, school assemblies, and scout programs. And this is in addition to having trails and managing pinelands habitat and providing animal rehabilitation services. So their goal is to establish a girls and wildlife camp scholarship program that will support young girls that would otherwise not be able to attend the camp. Young girls from underserved communities will have access to programs that satisfy young minds, expose them to STEM-based lessons related to wildlife and nature, and help engage them in critical thinking, problem solving, and scientific discovery. This scholarship program ensures that all students will have equal access to high quality educational opportunities that support and enhance their traditional education. So these are all wonderful programs. Again, we had a great pool of candidates to select from, and it was a really hard decision, but congratulations to all of our winners.
Thank you very much. I want to give a big congratulations, round of applause, a toast if you have something. To our Touchstone winners, our Touchstone winner, and our grants and scholarship recipients. So we had a great pool to choose from this year, and congratulations to those winners. I also wanted to let you know that you can learn more about the scholarships and grants winners on our LinkedIn page. We have posted links to the videos that they prepared that you can learn a little bit more about each of them. So we will now transition into our panel discussion. Our moderator this evening will be Kate McGee. Ms. McGee is the Director of Health and Safety and an Associate Vice President for Pannoni. She's a certified safety professional with more than 15 years experience in occupational health and safety, program management, and environmental consulting. Kate currently serves as the president of the Philadelphia chapter of the American Society of Safety Professionals, an advisor to the Executive Commission for the Mid-Atlantic Construction Safety Council, and a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers, the Safety Committee. SWEP, we thank you very much for agreeing to moderate our panel this evening. In addition to Jen Gresh, Sharon Morgan and Eileen Snyder will be joining our discussion tonight. Sharon Morgan is a partner with Fox Rothschild. She has counseled clients for over 20 years on complex environmental, toxic tort, and commercial litigation matters throughout the country. Her clients are in the transportation, manufacturing, and environmental services industries. Sharon's clients rely on her strategic counsel with issues rising in connection with environmental, health and safety laws, regulations, programs, and policies. We also have Eileen Snyder. Eileen is a regional technical coordinator at Alpha Analytical. She has 40 years of experience as an environmental professional focused on project management, technical consulting, and regulatory affairs. Her project experience includes multiple regulatory frameworks, including US EPA Superfund and RCRA Corrective Action, PA Act 2, PA and New Jersey UST Corrective Action, NJDEP Site Remediation Program, and voluntary cleanup programs in the Mid-Atlantic region. Ms. Snyder actively participates in professional collaboration organizations through ASTM, CTAC, SWEP, ITRC, NJDEP work groups. So I know I look forward to hearing from each of these distinguished women tonight and getting this discussion started. So Kate, I will turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to be a moderator on this very esteemed group of panelists, and for this group, I've been really impressed with all the things that you folks have done. So thank you. And just a little bit of housekeeping for those folks who may have joined a little bit late. We want to try and keep this as interactive as possible. You know, I'm going to try and moderate this the best I can and have a great discussion talking about career growth. But if you do have a question for the panelists, I invite you to put that into the chat or raise your hand. And if we have an opportunity to get to your question, then I'll call on you and ask you to unmute yourself. So that's just something to keep in mind as we move into this panel. So now, without further ado, let's get into it. And the first thing I want to talk about or actually get into is get a little feedback. That's that's all right. So I just want to have each of the panelists share a little bit about their background and why they chose this field and this career path that they did. And I'd like to start off with Jen herself. So Jen, how about you share that? Tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose this career path.
Ooh, there's a lot of echo in my house. All right, okay, is everybody else hearing echo? Yeah?
I just hung up.
Okay. How did I get here? Well, that's a great story. As Deirdre mentioned earlier, I started in the Air Force and I thought, wow, that's me. I'm going to be that gal, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. That didn't happen. I started out working in I was assigned to the dental corps, and I thought when I got out of the military, I got out in '94. I started about 4.5 years. I thought I'd be pre-dental, and I got to Temple University, and I was in their pre-dental program, and I was in my first year. And second half of that, my chem lab partner was a geology student, and she was awesome. And she said, Jen, we go camping. Pre-dental doesn't go camping, So I thought I'd like to go camping. And so on a whim, I took an introductory to geology course. And, I picked up the book early and I was paging through it one weekend and I read it. I read a textbook and was so enamored by it and taken by it and realized that geology was something that, to me, would be infinitely interesting. I would be interested in this for the rest of my life. Teeth, probably not. So I changed my major. I got a bachelor's degree, that BS from Temple in geology. I went on to the University of Delaware and got a graduate degree, and I haven't stopped my love of geology. I landed at Duffield and have been there for 20 years doing just that, and no regrets. Love it. So not a complicated story, but when I have a bad day, I always say I should have been a dentist. Just saying.
Well, I have a lot of friends who are geologists, and no one ever said to me, "We go camping." So I think if perhaps someone had suggested that, I might have gone a slightly different route. That's great. That's great. Thank you so much, Jen. I also want to ask the same question of Eileen. Eileen, if you're ready, tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose this field, and how you got to where you are.
Sure. So I'm going to basically date myself by 10 years prior to Jen's involvement in the profession. I found out about this whole field of environmental science and environmental consulting in grad school. So I finished my bachelor's, wasn't sure what to do, decided to go on for a grad program. It was interdisciplinary, which I was really happy about. And I took this course, which was trying to help the citizens group decipher what was going on at a waste site near them, the Woburn Industrialplex 128 site, which is an NPL site and still actively getting investigated. So I interacted with such a wide array of stakeholders. I thought, wow, this is a whole world I didn't know about. I'm going to do this. And the program that I was in was interdisciplinary in that it combined a lot of, regulatory and policy and science as applied to, this whole thing called Superfund. So while I was in grad school, our federal government signed the Superfund legislation, the initial CERCLA legislation in December 1980. Then the contracts were put in place and funded. And so my first career path was going straight to Washington, where the money was and the action was, and working as a consultant to EPA headquarters, and then eventually the EPA regions on those big contracts, that we all know about. It was fantastic. There were young people. There was so much excitement, that we were actually going to take charge of this problem and clean it up. but I learned how diverse and complex this field was, and decided, this is it for me. I'll have job security for life. So from there, I segued through, approximately 10 years in the federal contracting realm, and kind of got tapped out of that and decided I wanted to make a move. Came up to the Philadelphia area to specifically work more on industry-led, industry-sponsored projects, the other side of the fence, so to speak. And that's been, enriching for the last 30 years. So my arc of my history in this business caps 40 years next January. And, with a bachelor's and a master's degree and 40 years of experience, it's been a fascinating journey. And I continue to interact, with interesting professionals, at all different aspects of this business. I've moved into different parts of the business, but networking is very key.
That's great, Eileen. And I didn't realize you were really cutting your teeth on this industry straight from the beginning with CERCLA. And I know we're talking a lot about career growth and all that, but I have to ask the question, is there, in those early days going down to Washington, working on these super fun jobs, is there any site, any project that really sticks out in your mind that you could share some details on, you think might be interesting to talk about?
Well, I mean, actually, one thing I've learned is, and I have groundwater sampled at Love Canal, believe it or not, and that's still in the long-term monitoring phase. But I think one of the challenges in working in that realm, in the federal realm, is you would like to solve the problem, but the problems never seem to go away. So as we list more sites, it becomes more of a challenge to delist those sites, to actually accelerate the cleanup and delist them. On the other side of the fence, you see actions, on behalf of the agency to list a site and then to try to leverage some kind of effective cleanup, where industry may want to push back and study it some more and put some more plans in place. And that can be a frustration as well. If you're action oriented and want to solve a problem, there's a lot of foot dragging. One of the sites I worked on locally in Philadelphia was called Metal Bank. It's along the bank of the Delaware River. And essentially the utility companies all got together and decided, this would kind of be like their little waste site. They would take transformers there, pull them apart, take out the copper bushings, dump the oil on the ground, and essentially right along the Delaware River, that was quite a mess. So then what to do about it? You've got to not just one industrial manufacturer there, but a collective of industry, all with different agendas, perhaps all with, fighting over who owns what piece of it and what should we do. You've got the agency kind of pushing, let's do something. But this particular site, rather than being upland, it's in a river. So the contaminants, of course, go downriver, they disperse, PCBs don't break down. So that becomes a whole new challenge of trying to affect, the actual cleanup. So that was quite interesting. But I will say, in that field, to get my initial training in the Superfund program, one thing I noticed was there was more of an incentive to hire women, because again, it's tax dollars, it's US tax dollars that are being applied to the contracts. So affirmative action is important. So while there were just a few women, there were a few of us. Secondly, we got excellent training. There was always money in the contracts for training. Whereas in the private sector, sometimes you find, the training is kind of on the job and on your non-billable time. And that can be a challenge as well. So the foundation was tremendous. But again, the desire to be, more action oriented and to actually see cleanups move through the process and sites to be, delisted or closed, that was, I think, what kind of pushed me to leave the federal contracting realm and move into the private sector-led sites.
For sure, that seems to be a good driver on the private side. Somebody wants that land, they want to get that deal done. That can be some good motivation for sure. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I do want to also get this back on track. That was great, though. That was great. And Sharon, let's hear from you now. What can you tell us about your background and why you chose this field and career path?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. First of all, shout out to my colleague and good friend, Jen Gresh. Just so proud of you, Jen. Congratulations and well done. Listening to the comments of everybody, a couple of things resonated with me. I guess the first is my trajectory has been fueled by nervousness and general angst. And second, there seems to be a correlation between dentistry and environmental law, because I went to college, I was going to be a dentist. I was going to be an awesome dentist. I became a dental assistant. I can't sit still for 5 minutes, right? So I'm sitting over these patients all day. I'm like, I'm going to be physically dead by the time I'm age 30. I need to be doing something else. I love biology, though. Biology was really, really cool. This was circa 1980, whatever. CERCLA had, was coming into the fore. I was taking political science. I'm like, this is awesome. I have a plan. So I graduate from college, Rutgers University. I go to law school. I get out of law school during a recession. No one wants to hire me. However, Thank you, CERCLA. I got a job working for a small firm doing nothing but super fun. It was really, really awesome. And then I found 4 years later, I'm doing the exact same thing that I was at the beginning. I'm in a room with 500 lawyers. I'll never forget, I was working with a firm that was common counsel of a big super funds for a big super fund site. And, one of these, massive case management conferences, that particular day I wore a red suit. I go up there, I'm sitting at the panel, there are a million dark suits, and there's me in my red suit. I'd like to say that I planned that, but I was too checked out to plan that. And afterwards, a couple of women came up and like, that was awesome, wear the red suit. So that was a life lesson, to kind of, stand out a bit, within reason, of course. And at that point, I honestly got a concern over just doing that all day long, being pigeonholed and having no other marketable skill whatsoever. And have I mentioned I'm a little bit all over the place? I was getting bored too. It's like, okay, now what do I do? Well, then I had a child and then I stepped back, and a couple of years later, and of course I'm antsy all over again. It's like, I need to do more. I need to do more. I need direction. So I went and got an MBA. And I went and got an MBA because I thought I needed to learn to read a balance sheet in order to be able to represent my clients on allocation and whatever. I certainly learned that, and it was during the days of Enron, so that was really cool. But the really big takeaway from the MBA program, and this is it's shocking as a 30-some-year-old woman, so I had to pay lots of money for someone to tell me this. You don't have to know everything. You just have to find the people that know the stuff that you don't. That was like the aha moment of my professional career, and it took off from there. And I was, in one particular case, I was with a small firm. I needed help on a big case. I co-counseled with a colleague of mine who was at Fox Rothschild, and I was driving this case on my own. I didn't have the experience for it, but you know what I know, and I like to dig. I like to dig things, and you know what? I ended up sending a subpoena to a landfill owner, and this was after EPA had already been in. They'd seen everything. The landowner gets my subpoena. Lo and behold, there's a shed, and the shed has lots and lots of documents over the shed. And then all of a sudden, the landowner is really concerned that he's going to go to prison. So you know what? I got a lot of attention over my subpoena, and I think my career kind of went from there. I've been surrounded, Jen made the comment earlier, you do the right thing, you focus on relationships, and you focus just on being a good person, and it will all come back to you. And that certainly happens with me. I went to Wilmington, Delaware, Fox Rothschild. I went from counsel to senior counsel to income partner to equity partner. And I ran the office for 5 years until my term ran out. And then I was like, you know what, I'm totally ready to give up management and go back to being a lawyer. And that's where I am now. And so that's my story.
I love it. I love it. There's so many gems in that. I wrote down so many things. I'm not even sure really what to comment on. But I think some of the things that you said transition well into this next question that I have, which is, give an example of how you created or seized an opportunity that accelerates your career. And since Sharon, since we're talking to you about this, and you gave a couple of examples, you talked about the subpoena that grabbed attention. You talked about the MBA. But among thinking about your career, what's one example that stands out most to you?
In terms of what got my career going?
Yeah, that really accelerated your career.
Kind of putting aside all of the examples, I think for me, and I would think for anybody, really understanding your strengths and weaknesses. And I think I credit the MBA program for that. Again, this seems like common sense stuff. But it certainly wasn't for me because angst and anxiety took way too much of my time. So I couldn't really focus on the important stuff. And, I think it's important to know your weaknesses so that you're not going to fix your weaknesses. You're going to make of them the best versions of themselves, but you're not going to fix it. Your strengths, on the other hand, you can really do something with that, right? So if you can figure out how to minimize the weaknesses and lean on others and other resources, and then allow your strengths to really do their thing, and not get wrapped up in your strengths, but actually just do them and do them for the right reason, do them for the right purpose, and be genuine and authentic about it. At least for me, I think that's what's worked the best. I go into the office every day, and I really just want to get the right result. I have a client with a development project. I don't want to spend the next 6 months on it. I want whoever's working on it, I want them to be able to build whatever they're going to build, get their permits, and move on. And and if they don't remember me because I spent that little time helping them do that, that's a happy day for me. Those are the things that make me really happy. I think everybody has their own, what's the best version of me is not the best version of somebody else. But the best version of me is really just focusing on what the project is and what the individual, the company, whatever their goals are. And if I can do some good, that makes me feel good about myself, and it makes me think that I have the right job.
Makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. One of the things that you said that stood out to me, and I think you elaborate on this, but I'm hoping you can clarify it.
Mhm.
You said when you're working on you're thinking about your strengths and weaknesses, and one of the things to really focus on is getting the right result. And you also talked about projects and project goals. So could you clarify that? What for you when you're working on something is the right result?
Well, I teach this to young associates and whoever I'm mentoring, which is something that I like to do. But listening to your client, what is your client's goal? And hey, not every client has the same goal, and they come in to a project with different experience, different expectations, different budget, and whereas client A may want the 3-week path to getting something done regardless of anything else, versus the client who has X budget. It's like, how do I get there without the whole thing falling apart? And the first thing I do is write down what it is that the client wants, and I just go back to that. It's like, am I accomplishing this? Am I staffing it the right way? Am I using the right consultant? And at the end of the day, if I see either an internal team or an external team that's not right for a particular job or a project, I'll step back and say, do I need to talk to the client and say, you might want to consider X instead of Y?
That's a great answer. And I know you focus on this really in the legal realm, but I could definitely see that advice working for any consultant, really focusing on what your client's needs are and making sure you're serving that. So I think that's
Yep.
great advice. Well, thank you for that, Sharon. I do want to transition back to this idea of seizing career opportunities. And Eileen, I know you have a great story around this. So I was hoping you could give an example of how you created or seized an opportunity that accelerated your career.
Sure. So my first job, I was so excited, first of all, to get my first job. You know, you have student loans, you got to pay off. So I get my first job. I'm in the DC area, and this is a government contract. And I'm all excited. You know, I get situated, get my desk, learn my job. Then I learn in 3 months the contract expires. So if we don't win the recompete, there is no job. So that was a little frightening, but it actually kind of emboldened me, because at the 6-month mark, you know, we won the recompete, you know, so kind of now I'm motoring along and I see this horizon out in front of me, and it's like, I don't know, 3-year or 5-year contract. At about the 6-month mark, I thought, can I be really doing this for 3 years or 5 years? No. So at that point, I went to my manager and I basically said, I'm bored. I figured, heck, I had nothing to lose, right? We almost lost the contract. I almost lost my job. So if they have nothing for me, they have nothing for me. Every employer doesn't want to lose an employee. It takes time and money to go find that person, to get them signed up, to train them. And then you've got to figure out how to get the organization moving with all these moving parts called human employees, right? So the best thing they can do is find a way to keep you. So in saying I was bored, basically they sent me down to EPA headquarters to work on, the contract lab program, analytical methods development. So, you know, not coming out of a lab, I had a lot to learn. I also had to learn how to walk the halls of EPA headquarters and feel important, you know, when I'm in my early 20s. So that was quite interesting. But then they sent me on travel, because these work groups would occur on a quarterly basis around the United States. So I thought, wow, this is great. I'm learning a new job. I'm learning how to network. I'm traveling. You know, I'm doing all these things, learning the chemistry, learning the contract language. So what I would say in summary is, be bold. You may have nothing to lose by asking for more. And I've actually continued that in the different organizations that I've worked for. And that's actually enhanced my relationship with my clients and my customers, but also my relationship with my employer and my relationship with myself. You know, what is it that you want out of this experience? Ought to be your number one question. Secondly, can I get it here doing this job, working on these projects for this organization? Or do I need to supplement that job with organizations like SWEP and networking organizations, where you may actually collaborate with people that you're competing with? I mean, think about how unique that experience is, right? So if you're a consultant and you're working with other consultants, you're actually competing. But if you can kind of put that competition little package at the door and collaborate on something, you may learn some new skills about yourself. You may learn some new technical knowledge, but you may also relieve that pressure that your employer has to provide that holistic experience for you, because that actually might not be available in your job. But you may find those experiences in other capacities, like professional networking organizations, you know, where you may create knowledge programs like this. You may network, you may learn some new skills and different areas that you didn't know too much about. So be bold. Don't look at your job to give you everything. Offer solutions on how to enhance that experience. Because again, putting you out there is something your employer wants to do, because it's almost a way of your employer sort of advertising their capabilities, their services, how dynamic their employees are, you know, et cetera. So most likely they're not going to say no. And I would say in summary, always ask. You know, it can't hurt to ask.
I love what you said there, Eileen. And just from personal experience, I can say that advice, and especially looking at collaborating with organizations outside of your employer, has been personally huge for me in my career development. And I think it's just a really massive thing that I encourage any young professional or any professional who feels like they're stuck. They should definitely look at that. Look at outside organizations. What I tell people is find your people. I'm not I'm not a part of SWEP per se, but just in our preliminary meetings, I know talking with everybody, I could tell you folks had a really tight group, a nice tight group, and I know what it feels like to walk into a room of professionals and interact with them and feel like you're finally amongst people who really get what you're about, and that's just so fantastic on a professional level. And it seems like SWEP is doing a really great job doing that. So I think all the advice you gave is really well taken. I also want to focus on this idea of collaboration because you mentioned it might be challenging to collaborate with potential competitors, but it can also be really successful, not just for your career development. So I'm wondering if you could also share a success story that you've had, Eileen, with collaborating with a competitor.
Yeah, so what I'm doing now in the laboratory field, I would say that's rather competitive. Let's just say. But I'm a member of ASTM, American Society of Testing and Materials, located in Conshohocken, PA, their headquarters. There are other laboratories that participate, and we get together and we develop standards together in a collaborative setting. So that is actually a really unique opportunity for me to ask a competitor, hey, how would you handle this challenging situation? Whereas if you just, approach somebody cold at a conference, they wouldn't share that information with you. So you can gain some really important insight and knowledge that way. I'm also an active member, used to be chair of the New Jersey Environmental Laboratory Advisory Committee. We call it ELAC. That's a unique collaboration of not only competitive laboratories that are certified in New Jersey, but also the department. So the department actually hosts the meetings on a monthly basis, and we can ask them questions and clarifications about what they're doing, why they're doing it. We can share the technical difficulties that we have meeting their requirements as stated and get them perhaps to modify them or clarify them. So that's not only competing with my laboratory peers, but it is asking the regulator to come to the table and have a frank discussion over some technical challenges that we might be facing and how those might be addressed. And then if I think to someone like, Sharon, who deals with, large, perhaps CERCLA cases or RCRA cases where there's multi-parties, she needs to have those skills to bring those folks to the table, get them talking, and get them almost like herding cats, moving in a certain direction where she affects a certain outcome and gets to that solution or that yes at the end. And there may be some foot draggers, there may be some holdouts, but she's got to find a way to get them to play nice in the sandbox, so to speak. So those are really super important skills, not only on the job, but that might help you do your job a lot better.
Also, really great advice. It does look like we have somebody who has their hand raised. It looks like Marjorie Robinson. I believe you have a question for Eileen. Would you like to take yourself off mute and ask your question?
Yeah, it's actually anyone can answer it. But my question is like a general question. What challenges did you find working as a female in the environmental field? Do you still encounter them to this day, and how do you navigate those challenges?
I'll start. So 40 years ago, when I started in this profession, now let's be clear, it still is very male dominated. It was much more male dominated back then. So I love Sharon's story about the red suit. Don't be afraid, and I love your yellow. Don't be afraid to be bold. But I have found it, most helpful to just focus on the content at hand, the discussion, and not the fact that I'm a female in the room. I actually happen to be one of 6 girls in my family. There were no boys. I happened to go to a small private liberal arts college that was all women at the time. I had fantastic women that were professors, including my organic chem professor, a Harvard PhD. So I had role models, for example. And I really am happy to see more and more women participate. But what I would suggest is that you focus on the business at hand and demonstrating competence, and not the fact that you're young or you're female, or perhaps you're on the learning curve. You know, you're not as experienced as some. So I hope that addresses your question.
It does. Thank you. And I'm also one of 6 sisters, so we have that in common.
Well, I'd also like to give our Touchstone winner an opportunity to speak on this. And Jen, I apologize, I've been ignoring your fabulousness. So, do you have anything you'd like to share in terms of challenges that you faced being a woman and how you navigated it?
Oh, wow. My fabulousness is noted, though. Thank you. Challenges as a woman. To be honest, here's the thing. I did experience that in the military big time. 1989, no joke, right? I was a dental hygienist, and I was in Europe, and there was this large population of retirees from a different era. And when they found out that I was active duty and cleaning their teeth, they're like, how could you be active duty? You're a woman. It was crazy. Now, when I started in the profession that we're in now, you know, what we're talking about now, environmental world, in, 2000, I didn't really experience that. Duffield's a pretty welcoming company and lots of women. I didn't really see that. But for life on construction sites, and I think anybody on this on this call knows what it's like to be the only woman with steel toes and a hard hat being questioned whether you know the specs, right? And the thing is, you got to be better than them, and you have to know what page and what paragraph and what section, and say, hey, you're wrong because I wrote it, and I can tell you where to look it up. Right? So there was a point where you had, I felt like I had to work harder and I had to be better, but it wasn't because of my organization. It wasn't because of where I worked. It was because of those other different industries that I plugged into. And I can say that today it isn't quite like that. I mean, I'll tell you a story. There was a time, gosh, I would love to say the project because everybody would know it, but I won't. And I was part of writing the specs. I was a young geologist, and there was a lot of things going on: soil issues, asbestos, lead-based paint, historic building, Delaware, major highway. Okay, we're done. Marion knows, and I remember the client and the regulating agency. We had that kickoff meeting, and I'm just laying things out and how they're going to go, and I'm going to watch this stuff go. Contractor leaves, and they said, well, you weren't mean enough. You needed to jump on the table, pound your boots, pump your chest, and say how you were in charge. And I said, I'm in charge. I don't need to do any of that display of foolishness to show that I'm in charge. And the job kicked off, and the contractor fought with me on nearly every single thing. And as I said when we started this conversation, I wrote that back. Section 2, paragraph 5, read it, come back. It's in there. So, be good, do a good job, know your job, know your work, and you can beat people simply by being smart. That's my experience.
I think that's a great tip on referring to the spec and the regs too. I think that's kind of also talking about something that Sharon mentioned, you don't necessarily have to know the answer, but you have to know where to get the answer. And I know having a good familiarity with the regulations and specifications and relying on those technical requirements. I don't know if I'm quite as good as you being able to spout a chapter verse citation, but knowing that I can go back and challenge people who are challenging me and say, just show me where I'm wrong. Where am I wrong? Where in the regulations does it say that I'm wrong? And when you know you're right, you're right. So it's great advice. I also want to give Sharon an opportunity to comment on this. Sharon, in your career, how have you faced those challenges as being a woman in a male-dominated career, and how have you navigated that? In addition to a fabulous red suit. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There have been no challenges whatsoever. It's been a walk in the park since 1990. You know what, I personally, well, I'll give you the polite answer. The polite answer is never underestimate the power of being underestimated. And I think maybe the less polite version is, and certainly this answer has evolved over the years. Where I am right now, I'm kind of deaf, dumb, and blind to it. And I just, I can't really be bothered with that. But I will say to this day, I in executive leadership in an AmLaw 100 firm, if I take my husband to a partner retreat, won't you know, I'm the wife and they're talking to him because he's in a golf shirt and a pair of khakis. And you know what, that's not going to change anytime soon. And so you kind of just, to me, I much prefer to, I do better when I'm just focused on the positive and the job at hand and try to kind of tune out the noise. But I found for me, and again, it doesn't work for everybody. For me, the best way to deal with it is to kind of tune everybody out and be quiet and listen and take it all in and plot my strategy and then go for the jugular when it's appropriate. And more often than not, my adversary is taken by surprise. I take the remains of the wind and I go home. That's what I do, but it doesn't work for everybody.
I have a creative imagination, and everything that you just described had me kind of like imagining you just being like off in the woods and just carrying away your prey.
And you know what? I think you about nailed it. It's kind of interesting at this point in my life and career. Generally speaking, within my profession and within the environmental profession, I'm treated pretty well. It's when I go off campus that things kind of fall apart, right? And it's like, well, yeah. Wait a minute, don't you know me? No, I'm here to fix your car. Where's your husband? And that's kind of like where the issues begin. So certainly, and that kind of all kidding aside, it touches on the point. Pay attention to your professional reputation and become known in the community to men, women, everybody as someone who is you don't have to be the all-star. You don't have to go for the win. You don't have to go for be competent and be prepared and come up, with your pencil sharpened, ready to do the right thing. And that carries you a long way and people really remember it. For me to walk into a cocktail party and make chit chat and you know what, I'm going to offend far more people than I'm going to lure into my web in a chicken dinner networking event. Let's be honest. So, those who know me, and it's like, I'm here to get it done for you. And you know what, someone said, I really don't understand her. I don't know that I want to spend a lot of time with her, but she'll do a good job. I'm okay with that.
Oh my God. My imagination, just the web comment. I'm just thinking like you and I could sit down, we could write a children's book on female empowerment using like
exactly.
I'm sorry, I digress. I've gone completely off the rails. I do want to try to get the train back on the track here. I did also want to cycle back to Jen and just give Jen the opportunity to talk about how you created or seized an opportunity that accelerated your career. I know there was was that big transition, but I'm sure you have some great examples that you can elaborate on.
Oh man, yeah, there was one pivotal moment in my career. I had been working for 10 years. I was working in our company's Wilmington office, and solely working in Delaware. And I had a really hard time envisioning my next 10 years. Like, to me, I thought, well, I'm doing what I'm going to do in the next 10 years right now. And it, to me, wasn't challenging. And so I reached out to my leadership and said, this doesn't look like a future for me, and I'm having a hard time envisioning what my future looked like. And to their credit, they listened. And also, there was this opportunity. We had a Philadelphia office with no environmental practice at all. And actually, there was only one other staff person there, a civil engineer doing land development. And one guy, we had a city contract, but they were all deployed with the water department. So we had a big office, one other human in there, and no environmental practice. And they supported me and said, well, why don't you try to make something of that? Well, okay, let me go up there. And I got to tell you, there's nothing more daunting than logging in 0 billable hours week after week, right? That is scary. That is really hard.
How long was week after week?
Week after week. Oh my goodness. It was tough. But so let me tell you how it changed. Let me tell you how it changed. So,
okay.
Well, there's a couple things. One, I think when it comes, well, let me dial this back. Let me start with how it changed. How it changed was our company is part of an organization, excuse me, too much champagne, ASCE, and they have a course called Fundamental Professional Practice, FOPP. And it's basically a very fast track kind of course on project management where you learn about contracting and human resources, and those are great things. But you also have the opportunity to do a bit of a baby thesis. And in my baby thesis was, hey, how do I market a Philadelphia office for environmental services? And so I did the research, I wrote a plan, and I believed in that plan, and I executed that plan. Now, so I had a plan. I had the patience of my leadership that things take time, and they believed in me. So that's pretty super. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of wooing going on, is what I'm saying. And it took about 3 years, Kate. It took 3 years for me to be successful. I'm not saying it was 0 billable hours the entire time. There were dribs and drabs, right? But, I won huge contracts with the city of Philadelphia and continue to hold them for the past 8 years. I leveraged one contract into 6 other contracts just by doing good work and being thoughtful and being kind. Like I said from the get-go, understanding and active listening. I think Sharon said that, is so important to listen to your client's needs. And I mean, even if you need to say it back to them, it's so important. So for me, I would say I saw that I wasn't growing. I articulated that I wasn't growing to the people who might be able to change it, and they did. And then they trusted in me to change. And I had a plan. You have to have a plan. You can't just land in an office in a chair and sit there. You have to have a plan, and you got to work the plan, and you got to believe in it. So it's got to be your plan. That's my advice on that.
And hearing that 3-year comment, it just makes me think back to what Deirdre had said, and really credit to you on resilience. Working on developing something and working at it for 3 years, especially when you come from the consulting side, what your billability, your utilization, you're hitting those marks, and then you are just absence of those metrics that you're used to. You're like, this is my worth, this is my billability, this is what I'm bringing in. And that's just, I'm
hard.
blown away. That's incredible resilience for you to continue to sit in the seat, to believe in that plan. I imagine you had some people supporting you with that too, because that's a tough burden to shoulder by yourself. Do you want to talk about any of those folks?
Well, I mean, of course, Deirdre is a big part of that. She believed in me and that I would make it work. And thankfully, our Delaware team supported me as well. So I could run some projects and kind of keep things rolling a little bit. I mean, it wasn't great. But honestly, I think, I hate to say it, I did really feel like I was in this on my own. I felt like I was carrying this whole thing on my shoulders, and it was an imperative that I be successful. I drove myself in that direction, but thankfully there were people who had patience and didn't can me. So it's hard to build a new practice. It's hard when you don't have a reputation. We really didn't. We had one contract, and we were not getting work from it. And I met with them, the people, and I don't want to say them, although they're great, Philly organization. I met them for coffee and said, "Listen, why aren't we getting work? I want to know why. Give me something. Give me anything." And it worked out. And to be honest, those folks are friends today, right? So that goes back to what I said before. It's all about building relationships. And if you're going to plunk down in the middle of a city that you don't have relationships, that's your first goal. Build relationships, and build relationships with the people you want to work with, the people you want to be around. And I mean, oh my gosh, they have supported me for the last 10 years. Yeah. So I hope I answered your question. I got distracted by champagne.
There was gold. It was what you said was golden in there. There was pure gold in there. It was great.
Super.
And while I've got you off mute, I did want to touch a little bit on work-life balance. I know we have about 15 minutes left in this section, but you had mentioned like how key delegation is. So I was hoping you could elaborate on that a little bit more.
Oh my goodness, I am the consummate failure of delegation, I think. But I mean, at least early in my career, I was like, it's all about me. And there comes a point where as a manager, you cannot do it all, and you must trust in others, right? So that's where it's so critical that you take the time to train people and help them understand the larger goals of a project. Like people can't, especially in environmental, you can't just plug someone in randomly and say, do this one piece to support this larger piece. It's just a little too complicated to do things that way. And I know larger firms do that. I really try not to do that, because for them to really help me in an important way, a holistic way, they really must understand all the pieces, right? So I think when it comes to delegation, I'm a better delegator today simply because I don't think I'd be able to breathe if I didn't. Right. And I trust in people. And here's the thing, people are going to make mistakes. It's okay. I made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. We're just going to try to solve them together and move forward. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do, So delegate, trust things might go a little south, and then solve the problem together.
Great. And actually, we do have a question in the chat where actually Beth Hyde is, and Beth, are you able to take yourself off mute? Because I know you're asking for Jen to talk a little bit more about her experience at Temple. And and I understand now, and being asked to speak. But Beth, if you'd like to ask your question directly, since I fumbled it, go for it.
No, not at all. You did a fine job. I probably wrote it not very clearly, but anyway, I was just really taken by your experiences coming back as an alumni and the support that you had. at Temple, and then also being, having the honor of being asked to speak in the way you did, and what that experience was like, and how you got to that point. I
Yeah.
just thought it would be great for us all to learn from that.
Well, thanks, Beth. Well, one, when I got to Temple, it was, 1994, right? So I had served in the military, and college was the goal. It was my, right? That's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to go to college. And when I got to Temple and I found the community that worked for me, the geology department, and they embraced me, and it was wonderful. And so, and I loved it, and I considered getting a graduate degree there, but I thought it would be better for me to have a little more diversity, knowing that I wasn't going for a doctorate, get a master's somewhere else, and kind of get a better sense. So, but my heart always was at Temple University. And when I found myself back in Philly, a couple years later, I don't know when the Al to Al Mentor program started, although the woman who knows about it is right in my back room. She could probably yell out a date, but I'm going to say it was probably, oh my goodness, maybe around 2003 is my guess. And so the College of Science and Technology started a program of connecting professionals with like rising juniors, seniors, so that they can start to build their network. And it was awesome. And so I signed up to be a mentor. In fact, one of my proteges is actually here too. And it was wonderful. It was just a really great chance to bring some students to the office, look at the work we do. I mean, I've even had the opportunity to show them some sites in a safe way, I promise, and see groundwater sampling and how you look at a property. And so I was very involved in that mentor program. I joined the alumni board, and hope to make a difference and be part of that. I'm a proud Temple alum, and to the extent that I can help people, I always will, and certainly help young people grow in this industries. And that, like, to really make a difference at that age, that college decision place, I mean, that's pretty amazing. I'll also say, I think to really touch and build science, it's in STEM schools. So I think, to the extent that you can make a difference with the younger set, and encourage science and math, I think we really should. And I try my best to do that here locally as well.
Thank you.
Well said. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time, so I do want to make sure we address this last question. So let me actually go to Sharon. And Sharon, what's one piece of advice you'd give someone who's looking to grow in their career?
That's a really good question. I think I would go back to some of the comments that I made earlier this evening, and it really focusing on yourself and paying attention to who you are as a person, not only what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, and what is it that you want at the end of the day, and what kind of life is it that you want for yourself. And once you have the best ability to identify that at whatever age group you are, you kind of set a plan. And there are, a few ways to do that. I can give you one example. There was a national client that I had an opportunity to land, and I really, really wanted this client. And the opportunity required me to learn water law west of the Mississippi. It's kind of like, okay, Sharon, you have a weekend to learn astrophysics. Okay. So,
I was going to say, is there water law west of the Mississippi?
There is. It's a whole lot different than it is here. And so I had that opportunity, and I basically had a weekend, and I spent the weekend learning Western water law, like 16 hours worth of jamming Western water law down my own throat, rules and regulations, so that I was able to speak about it. And I got on a plane on my own dime, my own time, my own everything. And I went and I just sold the heck out of it because I really, really wanted it. And don't waste your time on stuff you don't want. It's just, it doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve anybody else. And, I'm, like I said, I love to mentor. And I'll look at business plans and it's like kind of all over the place. It's like a chart, right? Like, what are you doing? And kind of focus on what it is that you want to do. And what's the saying? You're gonna aim at nothing. You'll be sure to get at whatever the iteration of that is. But you have to have a target. You have to be able to shoot at it, and you have to be prepared for it. And you know what? Be humble about it. Just humility is something that we never ever hear about when talking about professional development, and that really bothers me, because if you're really focused on bettering yourself and bettering the client, there's got to be an underlying humility to all of it in order to succeed. And I think that's, at least, and maybe that's personal to me, but I think that's a really, really important thing. It's not about me. It's about the issue. It's about the client. It's about the result. And to me, staying true to that has been a very, very big part of growth. And you know what? You take your failures and you learn. You kind of have a good cry about it, and then you get up and then you shake it off and you move on. And we all go, trust me, I have a daughter who graduated magna cum laude from Emory. She went into the Peace Corps and then got pulled out in COVID and came back to like a hot mess of life, right? And I'm watching someone who, has excelled at everything in life all of a sudden in the post-pandemic world. And that's a really, really tough thing to do. But I think humility and just focusing on what it is you want, what your goal is imperative to succeeding in growth in career and in life, really.
I couldn't agree more. That humility aspect I would say is also, something I still work on, but was learning to embrace that was a big part of my career growth as well.
Yeah.
Trying to get away. I look at another side of that coin is you don't have to be perfect. You can understand what your weaknesses are. And if you're focused on perfection, you're not going to grow. You just have to focus. You have to be humble about what you want to work on and what other people's needs are. So I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Sure.
I also want to give Eileen an opportunity to speak on that. Eileen, what's one piece of advice you'd give someone looking to grow in their career?
So I would say be bold. Think out of the box. What you know now is what you know and what you see around you. You know the organization, kind of the lay of that land. But think about that as almost like tunnel vision or kind of a narrowed lens on a camera. So what you want to do is find opportunities to be able to step back and broaden that landscape. Networking is a great opportunity for that because it puts you in touch with different professionals doing different things in different organizations with different experiences. So kind of broaden your scope. Secondly, don't be afraid to take on new challenges. And again, I really highlight what Sharon said about, kind of rolling up your sleeves, opening up that, that Western water law and actually reading it and kind of understanding, something about it. And then you have a foundation to go and dialogue with others about that topic. And don't be afraid to show your lack of knowledge. The fact that you're interested and you're climbing up that learning curve will engage those other professionals to basically reach a hand down and pull you along. So that is actually a springboard to kind of moving along that continuum of knowledge. And then third, kind of propel you to be curious, but have a direction, have some kind of a target, have some kind of a general idea of the direction you're heading in, so that you're not kind of moving aimlessly along. But again, look out across the landscape, envision yourself perhaps doing something different, something that someone else is doing, or working for an organization that someone else might be, opening up some new material and trying to digest it, and then conversing with others about it. But then also having some kind of a plan or a target or a direction that you might be moving in. You can think about changing that direction, somewhere down the road, but at least you have a starting point. So those are three core takeaways that I would suggest.
Eileen, I'm going to ask you a tough question here. I think it's great advice, absolutely, to be bold, to not be afraid. But have you had some circumstances, thinking about your career transition, where you haven't had the confidence to necessarily be bold? Maybe you had some fear, some reservations that was holding you back. Have you had a situation like that?
Actually, yes. I mean, like some other women, have kind of downshifted off that career ladder to start a family. Had some unexpected challenges, so was in a part-time capacity for a while, and then my marital situation changed such that I had to get back in the game full-time again. Time passes, the technology, the software changes, the business standards change. So all of a sudden you feel like everyone is moving at warp speed and you're like a turtle crawling along, hoping not to get smashed on the road. But you have to basically, pick yourself up, put yourself out there, and tap into your network and work your network. You gain energy from the other women around you that are actually interested in seeing you succeed. They will reach a hand out to you. They will act as a sounding board. Perhaps they will help you expand your network, or even pass your resume along and get you an opportunity to interview. So while you're fearing your deficiencies, you have to somehow muster that confidence and that capability, and I do believe your network helps you do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's great advice, and also you kind of get some small wins. There was I heard something just the other day that kind of meditated around that idea, and I've been thinking about a lot. And it's like, when you look at problems and you look at challenges at a distance, they look like this massive thing that you can't overcome. But as you get closer to them, those problems and those challenges become so much smaller that you can put them in your pocket. So I've been thinking about that one a lot in terms of overcoming challenges and overcoming doubt and ideas like that. And I think having your network and your resources to help you navigate that, I think is a great tip. It's a great tip. So thank you. And I want to give the last answer to our Touchstone recipient. So so Jen, if you're on, could you give one piece of advice for someone looking to grow in their career? You're muted. Still muted.
Jen, you're muted.
I'm that girl. I'm so sorry.
No worries. No worries.
Everything that Sharon and Eileen said were really super. And even you, Kate. It's funny. At our company, we had someone just recently retire who was a mentor of mine, and I think very highly of. And he once, there was a time in my career where I would freak out. I would just be like, oh my God, I had to solve this problem, and I need 25,000 suma canisters tomorrow, right? Like the lab's blowing up. Like, how do you get, I mean, obviously not 25,000, but you get my point. So, and he said to me, just calm down, because Jen, a lot can happen in 8 hours, right? You can accomplish an awful lot in one day. And so, when I think of the day-to-day challenge, the simple challenges, right? We're not talking the huge stuff I was talking about when we opened this evening. I'm just talking about getting through Monday or Tuesday. An awful lot can happen in 8 hours. You can solve a lot of problems in 8 hours because you've got your connections who can help you solve them. You have your team with you. Hopefully, everybody's pulling in the same direction. So I think your thoughts, Kate, that it's this really big thing, but when you really start to pick away at it, it gets a little smaller and a little smaller and a little smaller. I think it's the same. You're saying the same things I am. A lot can happen in 8 hours, right? And then back to Eileen's comment that, having a really tremendous network, and Sharon's comment of challenging yourself, and like all that stuff is so true. So, for me, I think I don't like to be bored. So when I'm bored, I'm done. So challenge me for something new. I need to do something new. But the thing is, I give my leadership the opportunity to challenge me, and they're like, yes, finally. I think Deirdre in the background's going, yeah, finally. So, I like to be challenged. I think you need to challenge yourself. You need to grow out. You need to force yourself to grow. You're not, if you don't initiate growth, it's not going to happen, right? If people push you to grow, you'll resent it's not the right fit or whatever. So, I mean, you have to embrace growth, and it has to be part of your passions. And it's your own plan. Have a plan. And I think everybody on this panel said the same thing, have a plan and execute and grow and make it work, and have a network, have people that'll support you, and you will succeed. Trust me, because I can't believe I did. Trust me, you will.
That's great. It's great advice, and great advice from all the panelists. I just have to say, this has been a real pleasure for me to be able to moderate this session, to speak with Eileen and Jen and Sharon. I think there's just so many really valuable things that have come out of this. So once again, thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this event. Thank you to SWEP for putting this on, and thank you to Jen, Sharon, and Eileen for sharing. At this point in time, I'd like to turn it back over to the event organizers for any final thoughts and comments. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. And before I forget, I want to say a huge thank you to the Touchstone Committee for SWEP. Everyone did an amazing job organizing this event tonight. Everything ran really well, and cannot thank you enough for putting this together again. And I can't wait to see what the committee comes up with when we're back in person next year. So before we leave, I just wanted to raise a toast to our Touchstone Award recipient, our scholarship and grant winners for tonight. And just again, thank you all for attending today's event, and can't wait to see you again soon. So cheers and congratulations to everyone. Erin or Amy, any final thoughts?
Oh, thank you all for joining this evening. I think this was a great discussion. I'm happy we could do this, even though it might be a little different than what we had originally anticipated. But I think this was great, learned a lot from our whole panel, and so I just want to thank all of you tonight.
Woo!
Cheers.
Woo, cheers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and everyone have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. And thank you to SWEP, and thank you to our moderator. Great job.
Kate,
Thank
you're
you all
awesome.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
You're great.
congrats. Thanks, Kate.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Jen, great hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye
you,
all.
everybody.
Congrats,
Have a
Jen.
great night.
Take it easy.
Good night. Thank you.